Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. I'm Amy Shannon, but you can call me Amy. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome. I hope all is well with you. I'm Amy, and today I'm going to be talking about getting a bad review. Now, personally, on my blog website, Amy's Bookshelf Reviews, I don't give stars. I don't give anything less than 3 stars. I feel if I read a book or I couldn't get through a book and I would say, oh yeah, it deserves a 1 or a 2 star, then I would actually contact the author who sent me the book and explain the reasons why. Sometimes it's just a matter of sending me a draft that's not quite published ready. But there are occasions where people, authors or writers, they think that they write well and they don't, or they write well, but only for certain things. I mean, if you are always writing nonfiction books and then you decide to go to fiction, it is basically it's like it's a whole different world of how you would write it. And some people are multi-genre authors. I've read authors that have written nonfiction, fiction, fantasy, erotic, whatever, and whatever they try to do, they can do it. Personally, I always loved writing fiction. The stories in my head were not always real. But recently, I actually was writing a short story, a ghost story. And it was a challenging thing because I was writing it about my hometown, which is something I never did. I've created my own towns in books that I have written, and some are based off of where I have lived, but I never actually wrote one specific to my town. And I did some research, so I made sure that the history was correct for this particular ghost story and that it would make sense. And that inspired me to write a nonfiction book about how my hometown, how the town that I grew up in was formed and founded, and there is a very rich history, and that book is actually going to be released in March. So that's kind of a plug for me there. But I wanted to really talk about you know when you get your review, and not everybody is going to be kind. Sometimes reviews are written by people who haven't even read your book. They just saw, oh, it's about this, so I'm not going to read that, but I'm going to tell people I don't like it. Um, Good and bad reviews they can be learning experiences for the author depending on how they're written, because then the author knows what people like and don't like about the story, what they like about their writing style. Maybe they don't like something about the writing style, or they don't think that it fits. Maybe the book is too slow for its genre, or it's too fast for its genre. And sometimes that can happen. I mean, if you think you go to the movies and you're watching this 2-hour movie, and the first hour is just so long and drawn out, you're waiting for something to actually happen. Um, I don't, I'm not even gonna put a movie out there that could do that. You probably already have some of your own ideas. Um, well, several years ago, my father gave me this book. One of the things my father and I did the last few years actually several years, um, we we were close, and we weren't close when I was a kid, for various reasons. But as we got older and we got to know each other as people and not just, father and daughter, um, my dad and we share a love for poetry, music, and reading. And my father has a IQ of 162, and he had a traumatic brain injury when he was young, and now he is in a memory care facility suffering from dementia. But he still likes to read. He I send him reading materials. He loves like nonfiction books and biographies. And um, if he wasn't ill when I was writing my nonfiction book, he would have been a tremendous source of knowledge for me. But anyways, getting back to reviews, my my father gave me this book, and it's called Pushcart's Complete Rotten Reviews and Rejections. And I've told, I've talked about this book before, especially to other authors who are reeling over a bad review. Um, and, not every review, not every book is perfect. There are famous, best selling, globally known authors that have gotten bad reviews. And if you're looking at a book and you look at their reviews, to see what other people are saying about them, if they have like 100 5-star reviews, and then there's no other four, there's no three, two, or one, then it makes me wonder about, how is this, like, everybody loves this book that reads it. And then you can look at other authors' books. And I mean, I've looked at James Patterson reviews, I've looked at Stephen King's reviews. Those are two authors that I like to read. I also love reading classic work. And they have their share of, bad reviews, poor rating reviews. So, if someone's seems too perfect, you know, then maybe it is too perfect. Maybe that person has 100 people in their family that are writing a review about that. And just so you know, that any people in my family that have read my book, they have never wrote a review for me, and that's just for them. I hardly ever get reviews on my work, but when I do, I enjoy reading them, whether they are good or bad reviews. Just because it's negative doesn't mean doesn't share something with you. Maybe you didn't think of something while you were writing it. Um, but anyways, going back to poor reviews. So my dad, you know, he hands me this book, and he's like, whenever you need it, you're reading, you're going through your books and you see these reviews, take a look at what other people have said about like famous people's books. So this is it's a remarkable book. It's actually, it is still available online. The version I have is copyrighted 1998. Um, and it's funny because when you open it, the first thing you see is it says, for Walt Whitman, who may have written some of his best reviews himself. I think that's kind of funny. I love Walt Whitman. And if that is true, I must say that I have read reviews where authors are, well, they write their own review. I mean, really, in this day and age, you want to write your own review, even if you say I'm the author and I'm writing a review about my book. That's like, to me, that's unethical, and people should not write their own reviews. If you have family members and their unbiased opinions, that's great. Um, they don't have to say, oh yeah, I'm his mother, I'm her mother, I'm her father, whatever. But there is if you're going to write a review, read the book, and then give your honest opinion. I do have coming out in February um, a how to write a review book journal. It's Amy's Best Reads and Book Journal. So there's details on that. I'll be coming out free for people who visit various sites, and I'll give more information as that comes to light. So I'm just going to pick a couple of these reviews. Now, Jane Austen wrote Pride and Prejudice in 1813. So here was one of her reviews. And back then, like, they would write them in papers or flyers or whatever, they didn't have online. So this is 1813. They probably still wrote in longhand and then used printing presses and things like that. But this one person wrote a letter to a G.H. Lewes in 1940 or 1848. Why do you like Miss Austen so much? I am puzzled on that point. I should hardly like to live with her, ladies and gentlemen, in their elegant but confined houses. Miss Austen is only shrewd and observant. So they're judging her and not necessarily her work. So here's one for Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, which she wrote in 1847. Here are the faults of Jane Eyre. Are magnified 1,000-fold, and the only consolation which we have in reflecting upon it is that it will never be generally read. That was for someone, James Lorimer, who wrote for the North British Review. The Examiner, on the other hand, wrote, wild, confused, disjointed, and improbable. The people who make up the drama, which is tragic enough in its consequences, are savages ruder than those who lived before the days of Homer. And if you are unfamiliar with Homer, he was a writer of Greek mythology, and he wrote his stories back then. So then we come to Lord Byron and John Quincy Adams. In his memoirs, you may recognize his name as one of the presidents of the United States, writes, his versification is so destitute of sustained harmony, many of his thoughts are so strained, his sentiments are so unamiable, his misanthropy so gloomy, his libertinism, so shameless, his merriment such a grinning of ghastly smile, that I have always believed his verses would soon rank with forgotten thoughts. So then we have that. So this book is filled with various bad reviews or bad thoughts about certain people, authors. And, when you're reading a review, and I know it could break your heart, because you are putting something on paper that you're creating. And I think one of the hardest things to do as a writer is to share your work with someone else, because you have no idea what they're going to think about it. And if you share your work with someone else, make sure the person you're sharing your work with, if you're handing it over to a friend or a family member or anyone, but make sure they'll be honest with you about what they think, that they won't just say what you want to hear, because the truth, it could possibly hurt, but it could also be, give you a revelation about something. Maybe there was something that you weren't quite sure of in your work. I mean, we've all written things like that. So, just because you get a bad review or a negative review, and I think those are two different things. Some people do not know how to write a review, so they write absolutely, totally negative things that are hurtful and degrading to the author. When someone says, "Oh, this author can't write worth garbage," then that's like a kick in the head. So if you need some cheering up after reading a bad review, you might want to get a copy of this book. Who knows? I might kind of come up with my own to help people who feel bad when they get a bad review. So thank you. If you're an author who wants to be on the show, or you just want your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/. This has been Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Thank you for listening. And always, be kind and stay safe. Thank you. Podcast for more information. If you're an author and you want your book reviewed, go to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews for more information. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next week.